Hello everyone, welcome to Cavs Insider. I'm Dan Labbe, Chris Fedor here in studio as well. The Cavaliers, improbable winners last night in overtime, 95-93, shorthanded. Had a chance to win the game in regulation. Had some chances to lose the game in regulation, but managed to pull out the victory. We're going to talk to Andy Liu from Golden State of Mind here right off the bat, and then Chris and I are going to do a little fact or fiction to get you ready for Game 3 as the series shifts back to Cleveland tomorrow night, 9 o'clock tip-off. At Quicken Loans Arena. As promised, though, let's go to Andy Liu. He writes for goldenstateofmind.com. It's part of the SBNation network. Andy, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Andy. So obviously in Cleveland, we were talking with you about this before we came on the air. In Cleveland, everyone is euphoric. I'm assuming out in California, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's odd here. I think people are confused as to whether they lost this game because of Stephen Curry or because of LeBron James. It's a weird feeling. I think they've gone through it before. The team has, just in terms of their offense being mucked up. Although I think the main thing is going into a Memphis series. The Warriors knew that this would happen. They did not think this would happen against the Cavs and the fans as well. So it's a very interesting turn of events here. We'll see how sustainable it is, but it's fun. I mean, you can ask for more in 2 games into a final series.
Andy, you mentioned the Memphis series. That's the last time Golden State lost a game at home in the postseason. That's the last time that they went behind in a series this postseason. How similar is the feeling in Golden State when it comes to just the vibe around that Memphis series? Because Memphis was supposed to be the team that was going to give the Warriors the most trouble.
Yeah, I think that series is really similar, just in terms of how I think a lot of Cleveland fans really wanted and really needed this series to be like this. A football analogy I think a lot of people have pointed out is a ground-and-pound offense. Control the clock with isolations, really on defense, just defend Steph Curry from sideline to sideline, force him to take those tough shots. And Steph is missing right now, and I think from the Warriors' perspective right now, they're not too concerned. It's just that they've never been here before, so it looks ugly, and especially when you win that much. I think what a lot of the players in the locker room last night, although a little downtrodden, really attributed the struggles to just simply Steph missing. Now I think it's more of a case of the two, of Dellavedova and Steph, but certainly he did miss some shots that he normally makes.
Andy, do you feel like the Cavaliers are defending Steph Curry any differently than he's been defended in these playoffs?
I think they have a better personnel to defend Steph Curry than a lot of us had assumed beforehand. I think perhaps if Kyrie Irving had played last night, this wouldn't have happened. But Dellavedova did a good job off the ball, especially against Steph, more so than Game 1. Just simply staying on him. With the Warriors offense, once you can stick with a guy off ball, especially Steph and Klay Thompson, if you can switch and allow that to happen and just force him to pass the ball, the Warriors really don't have many scorers after that. So and that's how you saw the offense really get slowed down. So in terms of how Cleveland guarded them and really Memphis, they've done a great job of simply forcing him to pass the ball. We'll see if Steph gets more aggressive in Game 3. I assume he will. And that's how he really took over that Memphis series in Game 4, 5, and 6. So I expect Steph to become more aggressive. He didn't shoot yesterday, I believe, until about three minutes left in the first quarter. So I don't expect that to happen in Game 3.
Andy, what's the story with Draymond Green? This is a guy who was kind of the heart and soul of the Warriors all season long, all defensive performer, a guy who's maybe going to get max money in the offseason as a free agent. And so far in the first 2 games, defensively late last night he was good, but offensively he hasn't been there. What's going on with Draymond?
Right, I think with Draymond, he's a little bit out of control at this point. Just in terms of getting his flow in on offense. He's not making shots. He's not making threes, especially. He's gotten relatively well shooting pick and pop threes this season. I think hitting them at maybe around 34%, which isn't great, but it isn't awful, and it forces other teams to play out to that perimeter, and he's not making them right now. So if he's not making them, he's really hesitating to shoot them, and it's allowed the Cleveland defense to really settle down and really guard the guys even after Steph has given the other get 4 guys on the floor a 4-on-3 advantage. So on that aspect, it's hurting them. And on the other end, he's not getting as many rebounds as he usually is and pushing down the floor in transition. I think Cleveland has both done a good job crashing the offensive rebounds, not allowing that to happen, and also getting back in transition. So even when Draymond gets the rebound and he's pushing, they really don't have any numbers going on the other end. So that's Cleveland's aspect of their game, playing really well on that end.
Andy, obviously Steph Curry was the big story last night, but the bench for Golden State last night didn't really give them anything. Andre Iguodala had that big game one, struggled last night. How much of a concern is that?
I think that one is perhaps less so. I think Iguodala was going to come back down to earth. He definitely was not going to shoot the way he did in game one. Now he played pretty good defense on LeBron, so certainly expect that to keep happening. On a relatively good level. But in terms of how the bench is going to play, I think Steve Kerr did this in the Memphis series. He shortened up the rotation in order to get certain guys more minutes. So I expect Leandro Barbosa to play a lot less, if at all. And in terms of Spates and Ezeli, I think the minutes are even going to be less than before. And perhaps more Sean Livingston. Kerr sometimes plays his guys a little too much, so I expect him to maybe go 8-9 deep at this point instead of 10. And the Warriors really struggled to close the gap or extend the lead when LeBron was out. So I expect less bench players and more productivity on set.
Andy, there's a perception that Golden State doesn't want to play a game in the 90s, that Golden State doesn't want to muck it up and play the Eastern Conference style. Do you agree that if the series stays the way that it's been in the first two games, that Golden State cannot win?
I think saying that they cannot win is perhaps going a little too far, but certainly they do not want to play the style. That's absolutely correct. Now, can they win playing the style? I think they've already shown that they can, especially against Memphis and these two games. They won one already, and they could have won last night easily, although, in my opinion, they probably didn't deserve to win that game. But certainly, it's not as if they're losing by 10, 15 points here. These are relatively close games, and really they were down 11 or 12 with about 3 minutes left, and they came back within that time span. So it's not like it's not like they're going to it's not like they're going to sustainably play this game the entire series. But the point goes that this is the way to beat the Warriors if you're an opposing team. It isn't the only way, but it's perhaps the best way. It's just to make basketball as ugly as possible against a team that's played, the most aesthetically pleasing basketball this season. And it's worked so far for Cleveland, and it'll be interesting to see how David Blatt's defense, which has been excellent, sustains this over the series.
All right, that's Andy Liu. He writes for Golden State of Mind, a blog you can find as part of the SBNation network, goldenstateofmind.com. You can also find him on Twitter. It's at AndyKHLiu. Andy, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the series as much as I do.
It's gonna be fun. All right, thanks a lot, Andy. All right, that is Andy Liu. Chris, the series tied 1-1. Mm-hmm. I mean, really improbable. I don't think a lot of people thought the Cavaliers – there was a lot of, Twitter chatter and things like that, people trying to talk themselves into believing the Cavaliers could win that game last night. But it's kind of a shock that they did. And here they are coming home, 1-1, home court advantage now. That's what you wanted.
Here's my favorite thing about a series and the NBA Finals in general, is that we've played two games and both fan bases are saying, well, if this doesn't happen or if this does happen moving forward, it's amazing to me. Like, if you're in Golden State right now, you're saying, Steph Curry's not going to shoot 19% on threes in Game 3 and Game 4. If you're a Cavs fan, you're saying, well, J.R. Smith's not going to be non-existent. He's not going to make those boneheaded plays late in games. Iman Shumpert's not going to shoot 1 for 8. Each side has a case that can be made. That's how tightly contested these two teams are. But honestly, Dan, I think if you're Golden State right now, you are thankful and you are fortunate that you're not down 0-2 in this series because the Cavs have been the better team in the first two games.
How different is this series if that Iman Shumpert heave falls? Kyrie Irving might still be healthy. The Cavs might have a 2-0 lead. Yeah, Golden State very thankful to be 1-1. But still, the life of a series in a decent position.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing, though, about the Cleveland perspective when you talk about that Game 1, is that when you have an opportunity to grab hold of that one, you just don't want to let it slip away. And the Cavs, like I said, I thought they played better in Game 1, and that's why it hurt so much that they lost that game, because that was one that was there for the taking. The opportunity was there, and to not take advantage of that and allow Golden State to get one win in the series that they probably haven't really earned to this point, that's what was so frustrating about Game 1 and had me thinking, uh-oh, this could be a problem. This could be the game that comes back to haunt the Cavs.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Let's do some fact or fiction. Tied 1-1, coming back to Cleveland. The Warriors are still the favorite in this series.
I'd say that's fact, unfortunately. I just think when you're talking about a 7-game series and this thing going to a 5-game, 6-game, 7th game, there has been so much put on the shoulders of LeBron, and I know he's superhuman, and I know he's been sensational. He's been relentless in its attack offensively and defensively, but there's so much pressure on him. And I think that's going to wear on him as the series goes on. And I think the numbers of the Cavs, the fact that they can only play 7 guys, really 8 guys that they trust in their rotation, I think that's something that takes its toll, not early in the series, but later in the series. And that's still an advantage for Golden State. And the other thing is Golden State has already shown that they can win a game when they don't have their best, and they can win on the road in the postseason. So I still think that they are the favorites, because I just don't know that the Cavs have enough firepower without Kyrie.
All right, that being said, fact or fiction, the Cavs will win both games here at home.
I think that's fiction. I certainly think they win one of the games. I think they're going to be buoyed by the home crowd. I think LeBron's going to have another one of those special games where he goes triple-double LeBron, as opposed to 44 points LeBron and Golden State trying to shut down the water of everybody else. But I think they split these next 2 games. I think they're 2 evenly matched teams. I think they've shown that throughout the first 2 games. But I just know in the back of my mind that Golden State's got one of those games where they go for double-digit 3-pointers.
Yep.
There's one of those games waiting, or where Steph Curry just gets in one of those zones where it doesn't matter if he's got a defender in his shorts or if he's got Timofey Mozgov waiting for him at the rim. One of those games is certainly going to come, and it hasn't happened yet. Steph's too good not to have one of those things.
Okay, we mentioned J.R. Smith earlier. Remember that Atlanta series? He had that 8 3-pointer game. So fact or fiction, J.R. Smith will win a game for the Cavaliers in this series.
Man, I still wonder about that, Dan. I really do. I'm just going to say fiction from this pure standpoint. And I think JR has been good in pressure situations, but he just looks out of it in the first 2 games. And I don't know if it's him not being in a rhythm. I don't know if it's him being in the NBA Finals for the first time. I don't know if it's Golden State keying on him and not giving him the free shots. But he just looks frantic. And I felt like the best thing that the Cavs did yesterday is they went to James Jones. And yeah, he delivered 3-pointers, but he also settled the team down. It was a calming influence out there on the court, because I felt like Iman Shumpert was playing out of control, Delly was out of control, J.R. Smith was out of control. So could J.R. turn that around, and could he settle down? Sure, but history, there's loads of history pointing to the opposite happening.
And you know what? Even if you're hitting shots, you can't do things like foul Steph in the backcourt.
Right.
Foul Harrison Barnes, give him an and one opportunity. You just can't do things like that in an NBA Finals game where there's so little margin for error with the way the Cavs are playing.
I mean, the night that JR went for 8 3-pointers against Atlanta, some of those were some of the most difficult shots I've ever seen in my life, where if you're an Atlanta fan, you're like, yes, yes, take that shot, take that shot. And you're a Cleveland fan, you're like, no, no, don't take that. Oh, okay, it went in. All right, we'll live with that. So the odds of those kinds of things happening, look, in this kind of series with the defense that's being played, I just don't see that, unfortunately.
All right, so there's this interesting storyline developing in this series. So there's one dude who's been the finals MVP and his team lost. That guy is the logo of the entire league, Jerry West. As this series plays out, win or lose, LeBron James will be the MVP. Fact or fiction?
He's the front runner right now. I'm going to go with fact, just because Steph Curry's off to such a slow start in these first 2 games, and Golden State's his team that likes to mix things around. Last night it was Clay. Game 1 it was like a combination of Steph and Clay, but I didn't think Steph really played that great. The guy that we were talking about after Game 1 was Andre Iguodala. Yeah. So Game 1 we were talking about Andre Iguodala. Game 2 we were talking about Klay Thompson. When it comes to the Cavs, Game 1, we were talking about LeBron. Game 2, we were talking about LeBron. Game 3, we're going to talk about LeBron. 4, 5, 6, however long this series goes. They need him to be special just to hang in this series. And he's going to continue to put up those big-time numbers that are really going to catch your attention. And I think there's a perception that the only way that the Cavs stay in this series and make this thing competitive, Dan, is if LeBron James is superhuman. And if they can push this thing to 6, or they can push this thing to 7, no matter the result, I think people are going to look at LeBron and say, he got them to that point. We're giving him the MVP because we didn't give it to him in the regular season.
Of course, the thing is, the shorter this series gets, as it gets now to a best of 5, let's say it gets to a best of 3, all of a sudden, these games become a little more wild.
Yeah.
You know, they say in a best of 7, the best team usually wins.
Right.
But if the Cavs can junk it up, get it down to a best of 3, get it down to a game 7, that's when anything can happen.
See, it's interesting. Coming into this series, Dan, the Cavs' goal for the entire series is the same as what their game plan is each individual game. And the Cavs' goal for a game is to get it close enough where they can use their trump card at the end. And they give LeBron James a shot. Now, he hasn't come through yet.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. He didn't hit the game-winning shot in Game 1. He had a shot blocked by Draymond Green. He dished to James Jones. But the goal is to shorten the game, use your defense, use your tenacity, use your advantage on the rebounding to get the game within striking distance so that LeBron can deliver the game-winning play somehow, some way. And that's their goal for the series. Get this thing to a Game 7 where you can unleash the best player in the world, the 2-time champion, the 2-time Finals MVP, somebody that's been there as opposed to Golden State, a team that hasn't been there.
All right, that's another edition of Cavs Insider in the books. Thanks to Andy Liu for joining us from Golden State of Mind. Check him out. It's part of the SBNation blog network. He's Chris Fedor. I'm Dan Labbe. We'll have full coverage of the NBA Finals at cleveland.com/Cavs. Thanks for watching.